What up, fam? Welcome to Skill Tree, where we learn how to do just about everything. In today's episode, we are going to learn how to beat the casino at their own game and put the odds ever in our favor by learning how to count cards. And to help practice this skill, I'm going to be using my completely professional and not at all hastily drawn blackjack table. That's the same one they use at casinos. It's standard, really. Now, I'm definitely one of those people who have seen movies like Rain Man, or what's that one where the people from MIT learn how to count cards? People from MIT learn how to count cards. Movie. 21. The movie's called 21. Thank you, Google Gods. So yeah, I'm one of those people who will watch one of those movies and be like, oh my god, I want to learn how to do that. And those movies make it look super complex. Like, you got to be a genius level intellect to learn how to do it.
8. The count's still plus 16. 10. It's -1. Count's plus 15.
Luckily for yours truly, that is not true. Anybody can learn how to do this. It's actually not hard at all. So open yourself up a pack of bicycle, or I guess in my case, B. I kind of like these ones, actually. And get ready to level up this skill. Section 1, Prerequisites. Alright, so as nice as it would be to be able to just jump on in and start counting cards and think that you're going to have better odds at winning, it's not the case. There are some things that you have to know before you get started. First and foremost would be the rules of blackjack. I mean, honestly, if you don't know the game that you're playing, you probably shouldn't be betting money on that game. That's a bad decision. So I'm going to assume you already know how to play blackjack, but just in case, here's a real quick and dirty of how the game goes. So in this game, you are playing against the dealer, and you're both trying to get to 21, or at least as close to 21 as possible. If the dealer's total is closer to 21 than yours is, he wins. If yours is closer, you win. To throw a fly in the ointment, you can't go over 21. If you go over 21, you bust and you lose automatically. Okay, so you know the basic rules on how to play blackjack. The odds of you winning at any given hand is still less than 50%, slightly less than 50%. Because casinos are smart, and they're not there just to hand out money, so in aggregate, they're going to win more often. The house always wins. In order to even the odds, you need to employ a thing called basic strategy. Now, I'm not gonna go over basic strategy here because it's a lot of information. There's a link down in the description to where you can find kind of those cards they make out. They make out these charts on how to follow the basic strategy. You gotta study them, you gotta memorize them. Luckily, there is a video right here that teaches you how to remember pretty much everything. So what basic strategy tells you is exactly when to do anything, depending on what cards come out. So, you know, if you have this number come out first, you should stand, or this one you should hit. It's completely written out in these charts exactly what to do. You don't even have to really think about it. As soon as the card comes out, it is mathematically more in your favor to do kind of what it says on that chart to do, and you just follow along. Mastering basic strategy is going to bring you to even with the house. In order to actually get an advantage, that's where card counting comes in. Section 2, what is card counting? So for starters, I think it's good for me to say what card counting isn't. First and foremost, card counting is not cheating. Casinos tend to frown upon it, and if they catch you as a card counter, they can kick you out, and it's their place of business. They're within their rights to kick you out, but it is not illegal. You won't go to jail for it. There are no rules against it. Quite frankly, I take issue with the fact that they squash it. You're just using your intelligence and some skills that you've gathered to give yourself a slight advantage, where their advantage is built into the system. As far as I'm concerned, turnabout is fair play. It's cool when they have the advantage, but as soon as you have a tiny one, they freaking throw you out. Apparently this is a hot button for me. Who knew? Speaking of using your brain, it's also not just for geniuses or savants. Again, this is something that anybody can learn, and it just kind of comes down to simple mathematics. It isn't even, you don't have to memorize every card that comes out and be like, 4 hands ago, there were exactly 1 4 and 3 5s. That means, that's not how that works. It just sounds really intimidating, and again, movies and whatnot make it look crazy complicated. It is not. Another thing it is not is a sure thing. Counting cards doesn't mean you're winning 100% of the time. In fact, there's a good chance that by following all the rules and all the strategies we're going to do here and card counting, that you're probably going to lose more hands. Them is just the odds. It's still a game of chance. Where card counting helps is actually by knowing when to bet more money. If you know you're rolling an advantage, you're betting more money down. So even though you've lost more hands, the hands that you've won, you've placed more money down on. So the object of the game really isn't to win more hands than everybody else. It is to make money, not lose money at the very least. So yeah, in essence, what card counting is just a tool used to measure the statistical likelihood of a positive outcome in any hand. Now it's kind of mouthful, so here's an easy example to kind of visualize it a little better. So let's say I have a jar filled with an equal amount of white and black marbles. I reach in and randomly draw out a white marble. Now, there's no longer an equal amount of black and white marbles. There's one more black marble than there is a white one. That means the odds of drawing a black marble has gone up just a little bit. Now let's just say over the course of the game, I just so happen to draw more white marbles than black marbles. The odds of my next draw being a black marble is huge compared to drawing a white one. There are just so many more black marbles left over. This is an example of dependent trials, which just means that the odds change after every turn. So every time I take out one marble, the odds of me taking out another marble of that color, let's say, has just changed. So the same goes for a deck of cards. So let's say I draw an ace. There is now one less ace in this deck. So the odds of me drawing another ace just went down. Which brings me to the actual meat of this episode, which is the method we're going to use to count cards. Section 3, high-low. So the method of card counting we're going to be talking about today is called high-low. So as we talked about before, the probability of drawing certain cards changes with every draw. That becomes important when you realize in the game of blackjack, high cards tend to benefit you, the player, whereas in low cards are actually better for the dealer. There's a few reasons for this, one of them being that as a standard rule, the dealer has to draw on 16 or less. So that means if he has a count of 16, he still has to draw another card. So if there are higher cards left in the deck, then the odds of him busting or going over that 21 count is much higher. You as a player are under no such restrictions. So you can be on 16 and be like, nah, I'm good, I'm gonna stay here because I think that there are more higher number cards in that deck and I'm gonna go over. A little bit of a strategy play there. Another reason is that if you hit blackjack, if you get that 21 on the first draw, the house pays you 3-2, so you end up making more money on that. So the better those odds are, the more you're gonna make, the more you're taking the house. Now, I'm very much not an expert in this, and I'm sure there's a lot of other kind of reasons that some of you will be able to say down in the comments, and please do. Suffice to say, you want there to be more high cards in that deck than low cards. But Clever, I can't keep track of that many cards. There's been a whole bunch that have come out. I don't know which ones have been high and which ones have been low. I'm gonna lose everything. First things first, you need to calm down. You're at a 10, I need you to come down to about a 6. And you needn't worry about that because some super clever people have figured out an awesome system to make this work. In this system, all the cards from 2 to 6 count as a positive 1. All of the cards from 10 to ace count as a negative 1. And 7 through 9 equals 0. So with that math in place, that makes the sum of the deck in total 0. So a complete deck of 52 cards equals out to 0, because there's just as many negative cards as there are positive cards, and those 0 cards, they don't count for anything anyways. So the way card counting works is as the cards are being drawn, you're looking at those number values and you're saying, all right, that's a positive 1, that's a negative 1, that's a positive 1, and you'll have a total at the end. This is called your running count. If your running total is a positive number, that's good for you, it's positive. That means there's less low cards inside your deck. That's when you want to start betting a little bit more freely. When it's a negative number, though, that means that the odds are not in your favor, and you should probably either bet a little less or go get a drink. So here's an example of this in action. All right, so in this hand, the queen is a negative 1, and the 5 is a positive 1. So those two cancel each other out. That becomes a 0. In this next hand, the ace is a negative 1, and the 3 is a positive 1, which again cancel each other out. So we're still running at 0 here. This 3 and this 2 bring us into positive 2, because each one is a positive 1. The 9 and the 8 are zeros, so we're just going to discount them all together. And the dealer's 10 and queen are both negative 1s, so that's a negative 2. So that negative 2 and the positive 2 will cancel each other out. So what this means is after this hand, we're still running 0. There's no change in the probability of you drawing a high or a low card in this deck. Now let's check out this next hand. Here the 2 and the 4 bring us to a positive 2. The ace is a negative 1 and the 9 is a 0, so that's a negative 1 right there. So the negative 1 and that positive 2 come out to be just a positive 1. Over here the 7 is a 0, but the 6 is a positive 1, so that brings us back up to positive 2 for a total running count. This 4 and 10 cancel each other out, and the dealer's 5 and Jack also cancel each other out. So at the end of that round, we're running a +2. That means the odds have just gone up that there's more high cards inside of this deck than there are low cards, which again means you have an advantage. Given I think I read that for every 1 point you have in there, you get like 0.5% of an advantage. And in general, the house has that 0.5% advantage anyways. So at +1, you've broken even with the house. At +2, you're now technically at a 0.5% advantage over the house. As that number climbs, you either increase the size of your bet as that positive number climbs up, or you decrease it as it drops back down into the negatives. And you can actually get pretty fast at this. There's kind of an easy way to practice it, is just kind of deal yourself 2 cards at a time and really fast look at them and go, oh, that's going to be a negative, that's going to be a positive. And by the time you're done, you should be back at 0. Because remember, the whole deck altogether, there's an even amount of negatives that there are positives, and they'll cancel each other out to make 0. If you reach the end of your deck and you're at either a positive or a negative, you did it wrong, start over, try it again. Like anything, it just comes with some practice. And again, the real magic of this is if you're playing those odds correctly, it's possible to lose more hands, but make more money. Just because you understand where the odds are at and you know when it's going to be more in your favor to bet more or to bet a little less. Now y'all know me, I am not a huge fan of gambling anyways, but if I must, I'm gonna have the advantage. Now, of course, the math is all well and good when you have a single deck of cards, but what about when you have a whole bunch? In general, casinos don't really play with a single deck of cards. They have a whole bunch of them in a little plastic thing called a shoe. I didn't know what it was called. I found that out while I was studying this. It's this little thing here. The math for it is still really easy though. You take your running count, so like in that last one, we had a running count of +2, I believe it was, and you divide that by the number of decks that are left in the shoe. You're gonna have to eyeball this. I mean, the dealer's not gonna tell you, just so you know, there's 2.5 decks left in the shoe. But fiddle around with cards for long enough, you're gonna know, like, all right, 1, 2, there's 3 decks left in there. Just do a little practice eyeballing it, you'll get it. So in that example, let's say there are 2 decks left and we had that running count of 2. 2 divided by 2 is gonna be 1. So our true count is actually 1. Same time, if our running count was a +4 and we still had the 2 decks left, our true count would be a 2, a +2. On the same token, if you had like 6 decks left and you still had that running count of 2, 2 divided by 6 is like 0.33333. Round that down to 0, we're not even gonna count it. And as the dealer removes cards from the shoe, the number of decks left over is gonna shrink and your odds are gonna change. So I want y'all to know that I was way too cheap to buy this many cards for this video. So this many are playing cards and this many are magic cards. Because I'm a nerd. I'm a nerd. All right, so there you have it. You are armed with the strategies needed to take on the house. Now fly, my pretties, and give me a % of whatever you make. I mean, you did learn it here, and I'm just saying, it'd be fair, right? YouTubes don't really pay me no monies. Hope you enjoyed that episode. It was kind of a quick one. I've got a bunch of projects in the burners, and all of them are, some of them literally in the burners, and all of them are gonna take a lot of concentration. To that end, I am not posting a video next week. I'm actually gonna spend the week and the weekend doing a whole bunch of projects. So a lot of interrelated projects that use the same kind of tools. I'm gonna set up the cameras. I'm gonna go crazy for a few days just doing as many projects as possible so I kind of have them in the queue. Inside baseball, the way I've been doing this is like I shoot all of this on Friday into Saturday and then I edit it Saturday into Sunday for a Monday release. That's real hard when I have a really big project, and a few of the ones that I'm planning on doing are really gonna be time-intensive projects. So in an effort to give you the best quality I can, I'm gonna take next week off. Just thought I'd give you that warning in case you figured some casino somewhere locked me in one of their little casino dungeons. I assume that all casinos have a casino dungeon. That's a thing, right? You can tell me if I'm wrong in the comment section down there, but I'm pretty sure they have a dungeon and they have a torturer and those little hot pokers. I think that's a thing, right? Anyway, if you like what you saw, why don't you give me some of that sweet, sweet thumbs up love and make sure you subscribe so you know when I release new content. Also, let me know if there's a skill you want to see covered and I will add it to the list. All right, well, I better be going. I'm not ready to do this at a casino yet, but I can definitely take my friend's money. In the meantime, keep leveling up, you.